Food and Wine Insider is a weekly look at a $1.5 trillion industry touching every American. Devoted to the business of purveying food and decanting wines, Food and Wine Radio is a unique program highlighting not food recipes or wine vintages, but how to make a profit while satisfying America's palates. In this competitive but highly rewarding sector, many men and women have made profits while fulfilling a dream. Food and Wine Insider is all about better managing any business involving food and wine. Each week, your co-hosts sit down with successful restaurateurs, food mavens, winery vintners, store owners, food suppliers, and other leaders in the worldwide industry that centers on foodstuff and wine. In frank give-and-take sessions, guests and panelists talk about the business of bringing healthy and pleasurable foods and wines to others. Your Food and Wine Radio host are Ann Daw, former president of the Specialty Food Association and a longtime food executive who has held senior positions both here and abroad with Kraft Foods and Philip Morris. Don Mazzella, a nationally known business commentator. On each show, they invite leaders of the world's culinary and wine industries to share the secrets of their success. Visit us at foodandwineinsider.com.
And our next guest is Jack Acree. He's head of Saffron Road, one of today's most innovative food companies. Jack's here to tell us about his company, his road to Saffron Road, and his website, and anything else. Jack, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here.
Jack, tell us a little bit about Saffron Road, your company, and a little bit of how you got there.
Sure. Well, Saffron Road was launched in the second half of 2010. We had a couple of key aspects that we wanted to focus on, certainly at the outset, and that's grown over time. We wanted to bring world cuisine flavors more into the mainstream to the American consumer. So we started with Indian and Thai flavors in our frozen entrees, and make sure that they were produced with authentic recipes using traditional both methods and ingredients that went into the products, as well as with the ingredients, making sure that we were adhering to the new standards of today's consumers of being clean products, using animal protein that was raised without antibiotics, that was raised with care and humanely raised, and where it could be certified gluten-free. And one of the key initial attributes that we had is that we also were the first nationally distributed halal certified line in the marketplace. Since then, we've grown to have about 40 to 45 products in the marketplace, both including frozen entrees from world cuisines all the way from India to Korea to Mexico and beyond, a line of simmer sauces that allow folks to make a quick meal at home in 15 or 20 minutes, just adding protein and a few vegetables, and a full line of snacks, including our crunchy chickpea snacks, as well as our baked lentil chips and our chick bean crisp, all of which of our snacks focus on the fact that not only do they bring usually a world cuisine component to the flavor set, but also they're made with legumes, and as a result, they have a good, strong protein and fiber content. Our chickpeas, for example, have over 6 grams of protein per ounce, and then our other snacks have at least 4, if not 5 grams of protein per ounce, and that's all plant-based protein.
Well, where are your products found?
Well, our largest partner overall for the entire brand of Saffron Road is Whole Foods Market. They carry a broad selection of basically everything that we make, and then depending on the product line, Certainly our entrees are the most distributed aspect of our product line. We have, we're in practically all the major retailers, whether it be Kroger and all of the banners that fall underneath them, Albertson Safeway, Publix, Ahold, and which is Stop and Shop, and the Giant banners, and so forth. And typically in those stores, if they have a natural food section, will be found in that part of the store. But that's one of the things that's been changing in the food landscape recently, is a merging of natural foods into the mainstream. Because for today's consumer, natural foods really is the mainstream, and that's really where what they're looking for when they go to the supermarket. Just by the nature of the market and where it's going, the retailers have responded and are making natural foods much more available in a much easier format than ever in the past.
And I now turn it over to Ann Daw, the veteran food industry executive and past president of the Specialty Food Association. Ann, take it away.
Hi, Jack. Welcome to the show. I think you gave us a phenomenal background on Saffron Road, but I don't know that a lot of people know that you've been a part of 3 amazing product lines, Terra Chips, Alexia Potatoes, and now Saffron Road. All have been unbelievably successful. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about your personal journey in food and food sales and food marketing, and then I would love to talk about each one of these brands that you've been a big part of.
Sure. Well, first, thanks again for having me on. It's great to be talking to you and be here this morning. Terra Chips is how I entered into the food business. It certainly wasn't a plan of mine. It was very opportunistic situation where I was friends with the chef creators, Dana Sinkler and Alex Jejushitsky, and they had some very good advice. And certainly any budding food entrepreneurs out there could probably benefit from this advice. And their accountant told them, you folks are chefs. You need to be in the kitchen making sure that you're making the best possible product you can in the most cost-effective way that you can. You need someone that understands sales to be out on the street selling the product. And that's where I came in. And so we launched the brand in August of 1990 on the Lower East Side of Manhattan in 600 square feet on East 13th Street. And at the time, it was, of course, a very different time, not only in New York City, but in the country in terms of food distribution. And while Alex and Dana were always an integral part of the selling process and making sure that key accounts were able to meet them and really understand the full history of what Terra Chips was, it was, as Paula was just mentioning, production is a very important and labor-intensive side of the business, and they were able to focus back at the kitchen on the product while I was out selling it. And we initially set up our distribution in New York City. We had a very limited shelf life at the time of just 4 weeks, so I had a van and would go out and sell to all the different stores. And New York was, it still is, but in a different way back then, was the mecca of gourmet specialty food with the likes of the original Dean and DeLuca and Zabar's and Fairway and Grace's Marketplace and Eli's and so forth. And so we established a very strong footprint in New York City. And then once we continued to grow, we started to sell to stores outside, direct by UPS. And then within about a year and a half or 2 years, we expanded and started using distributors to sell our product. And the first markets that we opened up were San Francisco and Los Angeles, with distributors, and then just started to fill in the rest of the country in between that until we were ultimately sold to the Hain Celestial Group in about 1998 is when that finally occurred. And that was I had never been in the food business before, so it was definitely on the job training. Some of it is just knowing good sales habits and good salesmanship, but then certainly a lot along the lines of understanding food. And as I mentioned before, the shelf life of your product has a lot to do with how you can sell it and what channels you can go into and go through. Terra Chips at the time was certainly a revolutionary product then, and even today is still quite unique and different in the marketplace, which says a lot for the product, given how much innovation and change has come into the natural foods market. I did take 2 pit stops real quickly before Alexia Foods, which I've been thinking about recently because there's so much in the news now, and that is right in the late 90s, I was involved in an online grocery shopping company called foodonline.com, where we would partner with retailers and they would do the shopping within the store, and we would fulfill the orders through internet and then home delivery. Obviously, that didn't work at the time for a lot of reasons, including the bandwidth of the internet and people's perceptions of the internet and wanting to buy food through it. But it's very interesting to see what's going on in the food marketplace today and how that's finally really seemed to take hold. And then I was also involved in one of the very first original meal kit companies called Impromptu Gourmet, which had celebrity chef recipes that would be a dinner for 2 that were all packaged up and ready to go. Even more so than a Blue Apron. You didn't really even need to prep anything. It was all prepped for you, vacuum packed and ready to go into the oven or the skillet, just with a minor assembly, and then you would have a chef recipe at home in 30 minutes. And that was also in the late 90s. And of course, we've seen what's happened in the meal kit business recently. So that was quite interesting to be involved at that stage. After that, started Alexia Foods, which was a very significant difference than Terra Chips in that it was a frozen product. So the channels of distribution were much different. But we had a couple of key points of differentiation, one of which was the flavor profiles that we were able to have using olive oil, Parmesan and garlic, and rosemary and different flavors that folks have been eating in restaurants or at home for a long time, but just weren't available in the retail landscape. And by virtue of the oils that we were using, we were the first nationally distributed product, frozen potato product that was free of trans fats, which when we launched in 2002 wasn't even really a term that was in the consumer lexicon, but soon began to be. And by 2004, Consumer Reports had run a large article on it, and it gained high awareness very quickly as something that was not at all heart healthy. And we were sitting right there with the only product that folks could go to that was free of trans fats, and we benefited greatly from that, and by introducing sweet potato fries to the retail landscape. And Alexia Foods was purchased by ConAgra in 2007. I stayed on board with ConAgra until 2010 when I helped to launch Saffron Road, and I've already told you all about the Saffron Road story.
Well, it's, you've clear that you've always been ahead of the trends, and then you've created these wonderful products. Terra Chips, obviously not your normal potato chip and the types of chips that you provided, and then the potatoes and so to ConAgra. How do you feel about the companies that have taken over the products, and what were you able to influence in some of those bigger companies in terms of how a specialty product really needed to be treated, which is different than sort of large mass products?
So one bit of advice that I would give to anyone that's in the process or thinking about selling their brand to another company, whether it be large or small, is to have the best intentions of being able to influence and impact the brand going forward, but understanding that once, if you are selling the control of the company to someone else, that it's quite possible that your influence could be limited. And certainly, I did not stay on with Hain, but I know Alex did, and he was certainly able to influence Terra Chips for several years after the purchase, and then ultimately left to start Alexia. But it is it's a hard fact of life that what most entrepreneurs think of as their babies, at some point it's like kind of letting them go off into the world when they go to college or beyond to start their careers. You need to feel like you've done your best to give them a foundation within the marketplace to grow and to prosper, and then let them be on their own, because almost always the other company is going to have at least some different ideas than you are. And the key things for us in the last couple of brands is to keep the true essence of the product the same, which would be the kinds of ingredients that are used, the kinds of flavor profiles, and the quality, and just making sure that the quality of the product remains as high as possible, and then let the brands, both of which have grown and prospered under their new ownership.
That's really important advice. I want to return back to Saffron Road, because you were in this transition between ConAgra and then coming to Saffron Road. What attracted you to a halal business like Saffron Road? I just would love for you to chat a little bit about that.
Well, so the first thing that attracted me was that it was a small startup business. I certainly learned quite a bit working for ConAgra in terms of working on a much larger scale, working within a large company with a tremendous amount of resources, starting from marketing all the way down through the manufacturing process and everything in between. But there's nothing quite like being in a position where you're affecting perhaps 30 different people would touch in a large company, all by yourself in a small company, especially in the early days, and really being a part of and having that personal commitment and investment into a product like that, and that creates an ownership that's not at all financial, that's entirely emotional. That creates an ownership of the product and the brand and the company that, for me, brings the best out in me. And so that's the number one thing that attracted me. And then finding an idea or a company that I felt could be successful. And at Saffron Road, as it's pretty much since day one, halal was certainly one of the attributes that got us along, but also the fact that when we did launch in 2010 at Whole Foods with our 4 frozen entrees, we were the only frozen entree on their shelves at that time that had animal protein that was raised without antibiotics. We've seen that landscape change dramatically over time with the likes of Purdue and McDonald's and Costco, and you can just keep going down the line, that have turned away from animals raised with antibiotics and livestock raised with antibiotics. But that was really a unique feature at the time. And just like with trans fats, being able to go in with a health attribute like that, as well as a lifestyle attribute like halal, which for us has always been an opt-in. We've always been inclusive in terms of how we've gone out to make the products available to practically everyone, and even creating vegan products under the Saffron Road name. So it's really been that dual process of being able to be in charge of the process and help and watch the brand grow, as well as being a part of changing the food system and how food is raised and sold in the country, and helping to drive consumer awareness of things like the dangers of antibiotics in the food chain and antibiotic resistant bacteria and the like that have come out of that, and really just cleaning up the labels and the products so that one, we'd have a better food chain, and two, it just so happened that we married right up with what today's consumer was going to want anyway.
That's really terrific, and again, way ahead of the trends, because antibiotics and humane treatment and all of those things are very important to the consumer. You created many of the products yourselves, and you self-manufacture a lot of the products, but you also acquired, I think you acquired Mediterranean Snacks. How did you decide between whether you were going to keep the product lines and the extensions, or went out and acquired a company that brought those competencies to the business?
So the main idea behind the purchase of Mediterranean Snacks was that we already had our crunchy chickpeas available at the time, and they certainly fit within what we were doing in terms of chickpeas, obviously coming out of the Middle East, and hummus and all of that, but we were doing it in a different way, in a snack format with our crunchy chickpeas. And we saw the opportunity to merge that with the lentil-based products that Mediterranean Snacks had, and so it was a very smooth addition in that regard. And when it comes to manufacture in general, whether it be Saffron Road or anyone else, multiple factors come into play. The scale at which either the industry that you're in operates. For example, snack foods today, very few companies could start with when we started with Terra Chips, we had a fryer that was the size of a dining room table, and I doubt very few companies could start that way today. They would probably start with a larger co-packer or something like that to get up to scale. It's certainly possible, but it would be much harder today, I think, to do what we did with Terra Chips. And then when you talk about a product like Alexia with frozen potatoes and the tremendous volume that industry relies on, which is primarily the food service business like McDonald's and Burger King and even restaurants, a frozen potato facility can easily run $20 million or more to put up. So we were forced into using co-packers at Alexia. So it number one depends on the scale at which the products operate on and the kind of efficiencies, and then always finding, even in the scenario where you have to go with a co-packer, finding one that can meet quality criteria and is open to not just maintaining it, but always finding ways to improve upon it. Obviously from a safety standpoint, but also from a flavor, from an authenticity standpoint, to bring new cooking processes into play where you can get more flavor out of certain ingredients and so forth. It's a very, as what I heard Paula talking about before, it's a very complex set of decisions that go into any of the different product lines that we have in terms of how we manufacture.
That's fantastic. There's also a piece on scale, and I know in talking with a lot of specialty food companies, there's always this concern about outside investors in the business. But at some point in expansion or generating scale, or the business getting to a certain size, there is a need for an infusion of capital. Do you have any sense of at what level that is, and how Saffron Road has looked at investments or capital infusion into the business to continue to be able to expand the portfolio?
Well, it's a great question, and it's one that just like the specialty and natural food business and the larger business overall continues to evolve, and seemingly is evolving at a faster pace year over year. Back in the 90s, it used to be, and I mean, there's typically two ways of getting investments. By far the most common, it would be through a venture capital company. Most folks would certainly have heard about them and their venture capital and their involvement in the tech sector, and how they've been involved in practically any successful company in the tech sector that they've been in, that they're aware of. And then also in the food business, it's very much the same, but on a little bit smaller and different scale. And the minimum size at which a company would attract a venture capital used to be much higher than it is today. Back in the 90s, most companies would look for something that was $20+ million in revenue before they would want to get involved, and even some companies had a $50 million mark that they would be involved in. And today, that number has gone down for some venture capital firms below $2 million. And the reason for that is a lot of folks have made a decent amount of money in this business by investing in food companies. So that's attracted more players in the marketplace. And just like any situation of supply and demand, although it's a little bit inverse, the more demand that there is by venture capital companies looking within a supply of food companies to invest in, the price at which they're willing to go in, or the amount at which they're willing to go in, has gone down. And then, of course, sometimes the valuations have risen as a result. The key, the true key attribute or concern that anyone should have at this stage is typically when someone is coming in very early, they like the idea, they like the concept, but if they're going to invest in something that is largely unproven, many times they'll want to gain a majority share at that point. Now, this is not necessarily the case that I was talking about before, where it's a company like ConAgra or Hain Celestial coming in and buying you out, where you completely lose control. But it's definitely, if you are giving up a majority share of your company, that is always a possibility. And so trying to stick it out as long as you can with the resources that you can garner yourselves, whether it be through friends and family or even some other investors that aren't exactly venture capital firms, to gain some sort of critical mass where you could get an investment perhaps that wouldn't be a majority investment, but certainly a capital investment that would allow you to invest in either manufacturing or marketing and new products, new distribution. There's certainly a cost of getting your product onto the shelf, and if you want to gain distribution, that this all requires money. And if you're not generating it out of your own cash flow, at some point you're going to need to look to outside sources of investment to help you get to that next level.
Awesome. Jack, it's probably a tough question to answer, but what's next on your radar screen? What trends do you think have untapped potential?
Well, there's certainly a lot going on in the protein space. There's some things that at Saffron Road we would never touch, which would be a lot of the technological innovations that are happening in protein, whether it be manufactured or so forth. We do see a lot of potential in future, obviously, from plant-based protein, whether it be in snacking or in other areas. That's from an environmental standpoint and on, that's a very important. But this isn't a far out prediction, meaning from a timeline. I mean, what's next is really just we see is what's been a continuation of what's been happening, which is a continuation of the melding of the world and the world, just as the internet has brought the world much closer together in terms of at least learning about other cultures and cuisines and that sort of thing. We see that process continuing. Certainly in America, we see the demographics changing, whether they be by age or by culture or ethnicity. All of those changes are, especially from a demographic standpoint, are fairly well documented and are pretty easy to track where they're going to be going for the next 5 to 10 to 15 years. And that's going to drive a lot of the new products and new innovation that's coming down the pike. I mean, one thing that's clear, if you look at what any large consumer product company is doing, whether it be by acquisition or by its own innovation, is the new consumers that are coming into the marketplace are just not interested in the food and the brands that were available 15 years ago. So there's a huge amount of white space that's available for new brands, new ideas, to go out and try something different. One of the and it doesn't have to be an entirely new idea. Just like Saffron Road in itself, frozen entrees are not a new idea. It's the twist on them that is new. Another obviously very popular company that was recently acquired by Unilever, Sir Kensington. They would take ketchup and condiments, mustards, mayonnaise, whether it be, and put a twist on it, make it clean, make it fit the palate of today's consumer. But practically none of what they're doing has never been. It's not like it's never been done before. It just hasn't been done in the way that they're doing it. So there's always going to be completely new things, like the proteins that I was talking about before that folks are working on in a lab and so forth. But there's only a certain amount of food in general, from a general sense, but it can always be tweaked and changed and made better than it has been in the past, made, especially if it's ethnically oriented, made more authentically, made more to match the flavor sets folks, and of course made with clean, pure ingredients.
Jack, it's been a real pleasure having you on the program. Can you tell us your website again where people can learn more about your products?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. The website is Saffron Road, SAFFRONROAD.com.
I'd like to thank Jack Acree so much for his insightful comments about the businesses he's been a part of, the trends that he has seen, and the successes that Saffron Road has had, especially given its distinction in the category. It's clear that Jack has always been ahead of the trends, and I can't wait to see what else he comes up with.
Want to know more about health savings accounts for your company or yourself? Go to 2hsa.com and get a free employer's primer. Health savings accounts are a cost-effective way of offering health care benefits to your employees and yourself. HSAs build retirement funds for your employees, improve morale, and reduce your health care benefit cost. For a free employer guide to HSAs, go to 2hsa.com. That's 2hsa.com.
Dan Perkins here from Recalculating.biz with your featured book. I want to tell you about a recent interview I had with Bob Bethel, a turnaround specialist with lots of success in small business. Bob's new book is Strengthen Your Business, Fail-Proof Strategies for Small Business. He tells us of his life successes and failures that have made him and his clients so successful. Over the years, Bob has brought 77 companies back from the brink and changed them into thriving, profitable businesses. His energy is amazing, and at 74, he proves that you can still have a great deal to give others if you just try. His suggestions are easy to understand and very helpful. One insight struck me was that most companies do not have a plan. The old Chinese proverb says, if you don't know where you're going, then any road will take you there, is true today. Bob Bethel's book, Strengthen Your Business, can be found at Amazon.com or can be ordered at your local bookstore. This has been Dan Perkins with your Recalculating.biz featured book.
You are listening to Ann Daw and Don Mazzella, and the program is Food and Wine Insider. If you have a question or know someone you think our listeners should hear, contact us at foodandwineinsider.com. Remember, our programs are heard every Wednesday and Saturday on this station via amfm247.com or on iHeartRadio, as well as Roku Television. You can listen to past shows at foodandwineinsider.com.
Our next guest, I'm also looking forward to. And American food companies import from around the world. Not naturally, a lot of it comes from Italy. And one Italian favorite is Tuscany parchment crackers. Here to talk about that and more is the Marketing VP of KayCo Foods, Kim Cassar. Kim, welcome to the program.
Hello, thank you so much. It's nice to be here.
Hi, Kim. It's great to have you on the show. KayCo Foods, I was looking you up a little bit. You've been in business since 1948, and next year will be your 70th anniversary. Wow, congratulations on that. What has
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. What has contributed to the longevity of the company and its success?
Oh, that's a great question. KayCo has a wonderful history, and we are a family-owned company. And we are a very a tight-knit family, so we have high standards for quality. We have a high passion for delivering the best possible innovation, the best possible foods to our consumers, and that's kind of in our DNA, and it's what drives us and continues to drive us forward. So because we're so passionate about what we do, I think it's what made us successful, and hopefully what will make us successful as we go into the future. If you're looking for just KayCo, it's simple. It's KayCo.com, KAYCO. And if you're interested specifically in Tuscanini, you can visit us at TuscaniniFoods.com.
Wonderful. Your products have been kosher since the beginning. Could you talk a little bit about these products being kosher and what it really means to consumers today?
Sure. We're basically a leading supplier of specialty foods including kosher, ethnic, and natural. And yes, our foundation is definitely in the kosher market. And it made perfect sense, and that's where our higher standards came from, if you will. You know, kosher certifications are incredibly important, and it really helps define your quality. What it means to the consumer, I think it's a few different pieces. For the kosher consumer, it's certainly a way of life. It's incredibly important that all of the foods that they consume are made in the right way, to the right standards. For the non-kosher consumer, and we have a lot of those, it's really about kosher is, because of those higher qualities or higher standards, people who are non-kosher just believe, well, you know what, this is probably even made better than your typical food or your typical packaged good. So we like to delight them as well with our quality, our flavor, and our taste.
You know, I think that's so true. I think consumers who aren't necessarily of a particular faith believe that kosher is, it's like one more person overlooking the process, which says something about quality. And so,
exactly.
You know, we see so much more, so many more products that have that kosher certification. So I think it really is important, and it's one of the more important characteristics of a food product today. You know, there
Absolutely.
are many cultures. Yeah, there are many cultures that have flatbread. You know, especially you see that in Near and Middle East cultures. You're now introducing Tuscanini parchment crackers imported from the island of Sardinia. Could you tell us a little bit about that product and its heritage?
Sure, absolutely. So, of course, having a very strong kosher background, we are expert and we are one of the best-selling brands of matzah. So we know our crackers, and we were actually traveling in Sardinia, and we saw this interesting cracker, being consumed around the island, and we were like, well, what is this? It kind of looks like matzah, but it's much different. So we came to learn that Sardinia has evidently has more sheep than people. So it sounds like a lovely place to be, and it's really steeped in the history of the shepherds. So the shepherds had this specific ancient bread that they would eat when they were away, with the sheep, if you will, out to pasture, and it was called canna carousel. And what that meant was it was just an ultra-thin, crisp cracker. So basically we took that and said, okay, how could we bring this to the U.S. market and make it even better? So we created 3 different products, Tuscanini parchment crackers, one with oregano, one with olive oil, one with rosemary, and we kept it very, very simple. Just 4 to 5 ingredients. There's wheat semolina, there's semolina, olive oil, salt, brewer's yeast. It's just very natural, simple ingredients, and the end result is the most magnificent, ultra-thin, light, airy cracker that you can possibly imagine. It's really a very, very different experience.
Awesome. Where is it in distribution today, and how do people use it?
So for distribution, we've just rolled this product out in the last few months, and we're in a lot of independent natural stores or independent grocery stores, but we are available on freshdirect.com, so you can order it online. And the way people use it is, it's very diversified. So you can use it as just your simple cracker replacement, as just this beautiful ultra-thin experience, or you can put it with cheeses, or we actually have been told by people that they use it as, believe it or not, they make a lasagna out of it. They use the crackers as layers, they put on the cheese, they put on the sauce, and create this really different and dynamic lasagna with our parchment crackers. So really the options are limitless.
Oh, wow, fantastic. I think I also noted that you sell to upscale restaurants. How do you distribute your products to the restaurants?
We do have a food service element of our business, and we use various national distribution companies to make sure we get out to the right restaurants. I actually just did a trade show myself, and it was just amazing. People love our products; they go crazy. Our booth is always so busy that we're exhausted at the end of the day. So it's a wonderful experience, and we're really starting to see some success there.
Do you package it differently? Because I would think in restaurants you'd like to see your brand on the table, if that were possible. Is there any thoughts in terms of how do you make sure your brand gets recognition in the food service trade?
That's a great question. We would love to see our brand on every table across every restaurant that has any of our KayCo products, which is incredibly challenging. So we're trying to get there, but I would say for now, it's really about getting these products on the plates of these restaurants, and hopefully we just delight these consumers so much that they say, that's really delicious flatbread or parchment crackers. What is that? Where'd you get that? And hopefully we can get our name across that way.
Wonderful. The Tuscanini brand also has pizza, biscotti, and sauce. They're all kosher and gluten-free and all natural. Would love to hear your views on gluten-free. What do you think its potential is?
Gluten-free is important to consumers who are both, have a gluten sensitivity, as well as those that just want to live a healthier lifestyle. So our biggest philosophy, or our number one philosophy as it pertains to gluten-free products, is just because you're removing the gluten or creating a recipe around it, if you will, doesn't mean you can have a product that doesn't taste absolutely delicious. So our focus is delivering gluten-free products that you don't even notice that it's a gluten-free product, that it tastes just that good. We actually have a full line of gluten-free products called Absolutely Gluten-Free. They're absolutely delicious, and the way the name came about was people said, are you sure this is gluten-free? And we said, absolutely. So we take great pride on how hard we work to get that flavor across in unique flavor profiles with the best possible ingredients to our consumers.
Wonderful. KayCo Foods has a very broad portfolio. I think I read 150 brands and 5,000 products for frozen grocery and perishables. What are some of the biggest challenges you face in managing such a large portfolio and keeping retailers happy?
Wow, that is a very big question. Honestly, it's so hard to just make sure that we have so many amazing products. And so the biggest challenge is giving each one of those products enough attention so that we can be successful with all of our retailers. So we take great diligence in the way we manufacture, the way we package, the way we deliver, the way we promote to these retailers. So the honest question is, it is very hard. And the good news is we are, like I said, so passionate about what we do that it's just a lot of hard work, and that's what allows us to support so many products across so many retailers.
Do you also, I'd be curious to hear how you manage your SKUs. I know with retailers, it's always best to say, look, I want to replace these SKUs with these SKUs rather than proliferating your SKUs and then having the retailers sort of say, well, these particular ones aren't doing so well and therefore we're going to discontinue that. Do you have an approach and a philosophy to how you manage your SKUs?
We do, and it is. I've been in marketing for over 20 years, and every company I've worked at seems to have a high SKU proliferation. And it's always the question of, SKU rationalization, right? What do we keep in the line? What do we take out? I will say at KayCo, we are very customer driven in that we want to make sure that our customers have the right product assortment and that we keep the right products in the line. Now, we have a very large independent kosher sales network, if you will. So that allows us to have so many unique products because they all have a home. I'll say we have not pushed hard on trying to remove products that are important to other customers. We really try to make sure each customer has exactly what they need so that they can support their shoppers.
Excellent. We all have sort of success stories and not so success stories. Could you talk a little bit about a not so successful story, because there's always lessons learned in them? If you could pick one of those, then I'm going to go to the opposite side in terms of talking about a really great success story.
Yeah, so you're going to think this is not true, but I don't really have a colossal failure that I know of at KayCo. The way we've approached the market has really been about delivering products that have a demand. And 9 times out of 10, there's this big trend in the mass market, right? And then we bring that trend to the kosher market by delivering, a high kosher certification with the right flavor, with the right features and benefits. And I'll tell you, it's been a recipe for success. Things have gone very, very well as far as I know. I have not heard of anything that was absolutely tragic, so I think that's a good thing. In terms of success, we have a few that are really starting to take off. I mentioned the Absolutely Gluten-Free line that hit the trend right at the right time. We actually have a frozen cauliflower pizza in that line, which is absolutely delicious and so good for you and gives you a nice high serving of vegetables. And again, we hit the trend right at the right time with that product. The other product that has all the potential for great success is a line called Beetology. Beetology is a line of cold-pressed, organic, non-GMO, fair trade beet juice layered with flavors of fruits and vegetables. And this product line has just gone out of control. Every single time someone tries it, they say, wow, I had no idea that beets could taste that good. So we think we really have something in the making there.
That's fabulous. You sell your crackers, coming back to the Tuscanini parchment crackers. You sell them on Amazon, Fresh Direct, in major supermarket chains and independent grocers. I realize it may be early days, but what channels do you think hold the most promise for the Tuscanini product?
I really believe this product would do very well in just traditional grocery. Just having it in that savory snack aisle as an option, say, between potato chips and other crackers, it's such a different experience. It's taking a cracker to the next level. So I really think that there's mass appeal on this, and that if any grocery store brought it into $4.99 price point, these are 6-inch crackers. They're huge, and they're just so versatile. I think if we got that in front of the mass consumer, did some demos, people would just absolutely gravitate to it.
Ann's doing such a great job. I hate to break in, but I have to ask a question that just came across my computer from a listener, which is, if I'm someone entering the marketplace and I wanted you to represent us, what do I have to do? And are you interested in new products? And how do you evaluate them?
Wow, that's a wonderful question. We are always interested in new products. So my advice would be to go to KayCo.com. There's a place where you can go ahead and send us an email and just say exactly that. We're interested in you representing our product or taking a look at our product, and that will make its way to me, and then we'll take a look at what the product has, look at the features and benefits, and say, you know what, does this fit for our company, and make a decision from there.
Thank you. Back to you, Ann.
Kim, marketing's changed. You were mentioning earlier that you've been in the field for 20 years now. How have you seen what the demands are on marketing and sort of the changes in the channels for marketing products, and what you feel like maybe 20 years you needed to be expert in and what you need to be expert in today?
Oh, that's also a great question. I think, 20 years ago when I came into marketing, first of all, it was a one-way conversation with marketing or advertising to the consumer, right? So you did FSIs, you did print advertising, you did TV advertising, and it was a wonderful way to just throw your message out there and tell the consumer exactly what you wanted to tell them. 20 years later, what you need to be expert in is not that print advertising or that TV production shoot. What you need to be expert in is social media, because now it's a very open, two-way conversation in real time that is constantly driving your marketing efforts and quite frankly, your R&D efforts, because there's so much feedback. There's so much information. You could do a focus group on Facebook alone and have it done in an hour just because consumers are so engaged and they want to tell you exactly what they're looking for. So I think the number one thing that's changed is when you look at someone's marketing plan today versus 20 years ago, the higher spend is on Facebook and Instagram and digital marketing versus those print and TV ads. Plus, it's about, real-time analysis of the data that comes in through those social platforms.
So today, what is the the core metrics that you look at, something that you really pay attention to every day, every week?
From a social media standpoint or in general?
Just in general, in terms of making sure that your businesses are moving in the right direction.
Sure. Okay, sure. Well, there's a few things. Just from a business standpoint, I always look at how my ACV is, how my products are moving. I'm looking at velocity. I'm looking at seasonality. I'm trying to track, where my strengths and weaknesses are so that I can obviously continue to grow my brand just on a business basis. From a marketing consumer standpoint, I'm constantly monitoring the feedback that we get in through social media, what consumers are looking for, what we're missing, what they like and what they dislike, because that really drives my marketing message as well as my new product development. It's really where a lot of the ideas come from for many of my marketing initiatives.
In your mind, what the future holds for the Tuscanini brand and then for KayCo Foods?
Sure. For the Tuscanini brand, and we kind of touched on it a little bit, it's a full line of authentic, natural, delicious Italian products. So we actually have a line of sauces in the, pasta sauces in the Tuscanini brand with 40 Italian vine-ripened tomatoes per bottle. It is also addictive. So we really believe the Tuscanini brand can go mainstream and can really be a staple in consumers' kitchens. For KayCo, I will tell you, I believe that our future is limitless. We are one of the most, in my opinion, dynamic companies where we are constantly looking for the next great trend, the next innovation, the next way to take our products above and beyond, and we're relentless. We're relentless in that area. So I think that our future is going to be very bright.
And don't you think this is, she is one of the best salesmen we've run across in a long time?
Well, that's important. If you don't sell something, nothing else happens.
Exactly. It's all about execution.
Well, is KayCo a private company, and how is it structured?
KayCo is a private company. We are family owned. Like you said, next year is our 70th anniversary. But I'll tell you, we're structured like most other CPG companies in terms of departments and levels and all of those good things. But I'll say the one thing about KayCo that's different from most CPG is that we're very fast. We make quick decisions, quick analysis. We don't sit and wait. If we see an opportunity, we jump on it. So that's kind of baked into our DNA, which I think makes us more competitive than some other companies.
So I know, Kim, that you have products in more than 30 countries. What country in particular is a focal area or is very popular with your products?
The two countries that I think would be our most popular are Israel, of course, as well as the UK. So we do a lot of business in both those countries. Our product line certainly makes sense in both those countries. And we also do a fair amount of business in Canada as well. So we are really focused on the U.S. right now, but we do intend to grow those other areas globally. Fantastic.
Don, do you have any other questions?
Oh, I have a lot of questions, but we're getting close to the end. Your website and how people could reach you is also, can you tell us that?
Sure. So if you're looking for just KayCo, it's simple. It's KayCo.com, KayCo. And if you're interested specifically in Tuscanini, you can visit us at TuscaniniFoods.com.
You also sell your products online through Tuscanini. Are there other sites as well?
We do sell a lot through Amazon. Is probably the best site to find the widest assortment of KayCo products.
Well, Kim, we're really happy that you joined us today. I know I learned a lot, and I hope our audience did as well.
No, thank you, Kim. I really appreciate it. You've been great. You've been open. I think you're right. I think KayCo has a great future because you seem very in tune with what the trends are and have hit it right at the as it's going up versus after the peak. So good for you folks. And I think the nimbleness is a really important quality in any company today because everything's moving so fast.
It sure is. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure talking to you both, and I look forward to the next time.
Thank you.
Take care now.
You too.
You are listening to Ann Daw and Don Mazzella, and the program is Food and Wine Insider. Want to join us on a future show? contact us at foodandwineinsider.com. Until next time, have a passion for food, wine, and profits, and think of our program, Food and Wine Insider. If you have a question or know someone you think our listeners should hear, contact us at foodandwineinsider.com. Remember, our programs are heard every Wednesday and Saturday on this station via amfm247.com or on iHeartRadio, as well as Roku television. You can listen to past shows at foodandwineinsider.com.